Welcome back to another video on Master Duels. Today we are looking at the Forbidden and Limited list. So as some of you may know, Master Duel just came out in the past couple of days here, and I've been playing it quite a bit. I have made it to Platinum rank 5, so still a little bit left to climb there, but also level 10 on the actual personal rankings. If you guys want to add me on Master Duel, feel free to use the ID right there, and we can follow each other and get some games in. So the Master Duel ban list is kind of different than the TCG and the OCG. It's very similar to the OCG in a lot of ways, but there are definitely some differences. So you'll probably notice that when you actually go and first open a deck, you'll see that some of the cards have a little symbol next to their card image, and that is for the limited and semi-limited lists. So for example, Salmon Great Gazelle is limited to 1, and Monster Reborn and Regeki are also at 1. So the difference from the TCG, for example, is that Salmon Great Circle here is actually able to be played at 3 copies, whereas in the TCG it is only at 1 copy. So you're probably wondering, okay, great, that's one way to look at the ban list, but how do I see it in its entirety? Well, you first want to go back to the main menu and click on the sub menu in the top corner. You can also hit the plus button. Click on Forbidden and Limited, and it will give you an overview of what the Forbidden and Limited list entails. So there's 3 types of cards on the list. Cards that are forbidden, and those cannot be used in any deck or extra deck. There are limited cards, which can only be used at a maximum of 1 copy between your deck and extra deck. And semi-limited list, which is the same as limited except it's 2 copies. So just keep in mind that whenever Master Duel adds, if ever, a side deck option, that the Forbidden and Limited list also applies to that. So normally a card is able to be played at 3 copies if it is not on the Forbidden and Limited list. So that means that between your deck, extra, and side deck, you can only play 3 copies. So basically the Forbidden, Limited, and Semi-Limited list take those cards down to 0, 1, or 2 copies respectively. If you look at the Forbidden and Limited policy, it does say that it is subject to change in order to improve game balance and player enjoyment. So limited regulations are carefully reviewed and may change as the environment changes, and in those cases, card effects may change. So that is leaving a lot on the table for Konami to actually change basically whatever they want about the game. So that is one thing to be careful about in the future. So it does say how the list may differ from the TCG or the OCG. And in that case, one of the best examples is a card like Max C, which is unlimited in the OCG, but it is completely banned in the TCG, meaning that if you played it in Master Duel, it is at 3 copies, but if in the future they added a TCG option, and I would think a lot of North American players would opt for that option, you have to be a little careful because Master Duel might kind of make you spend gems on Max C, but then you might kind of find yourself playing in a TCG meta where Max C is not able to be played. So the other note at the bottom is that limited regulations are subject to careful review, and they may change, and they will be implemented within 2 weeks of announcement, but it may be earlier than that 2 weeks. So if you click on at the bottom here, you can open the Forbidden and Limited list itself, and this is what I was talking about, the different regulations. So currently Master Duel only has a standard regulation. That is technically its own format. It is similar to the OCG in a lot of ways, but it is its own format, and there are its own differences. So you can assume that in the future they will have other options, and whether those options are actually the TCG or the OCG, that is yet to be determined, but most likely the other options will be for additional formats, such as something like traditional format, where in traditional format, all cards that are banned are limited to 1. So basically, if a card is at 0, it becomes at 1. That's like the only difference between standard and traditional for most cases. But there are also formats that they announced recently in the TCG, including such things as Time Wizard format, which allows you to, it's kind of a all-encompassing format where it allows you to travel to any time frame in Yu-Gi-Oh! And use the cards that were available at that time and play according to a certain ban list and rule set of that specific era in Yu-Gi-Oh! So if you look at all of the different options for regulations, kind of the sky's the limit. And honestly, they could add even additional regulations. Another one that they recently announced to be implemented into the TCG is called Common Charity format, where only cards of a common rarity are able to be played. So basically, if a card has not had a common printing, it cannot be played. And actually, you need to specifically use that common rarity. You cannot actually use an ultra rare printing even if the card has another common printing. So there's a lot of things that could go on with that, and specifically the common charity could be very easily implemented with using normal monsters. So if we take a look at the standard regulation here, you will see that it gives you 3 tabs: the forbidden, limited, and semi-limited lists. So like I said, forbidden is designated by this little cross-out symbol, and it means that cards are not able to be used whatsoever in any of the decks in Master Duel as of currently. So looking over, there's a lot of classic cards that you may recognize, things like Graceful Charity, things like Pot of Greed, things like Change of Heart. These are very powerful staples that came out in the early days of the game, and they have since been banned just due to their immense strength, their one-sided advantage, and their almost zero drawbacks to the card. So other cards, things like Time Seal, things like Last Turn, do cause some interesting rulings that people really do not want to deal with. There's other cards on here that maybe won't be as, can be argued that they actually won't really affect the game, such as Yatagarasu, especially when you see that Chaos Emperor Dragon has seen an errata since the Yata lock back in the early days of the game. Things like Metamorphosis are extremely powerful, especially in GOAT format. Also Magical Scientist, Trap Dust Shoot. These are just extremely powerful cards. Butterfly Dagger, Elma, part of a kind of a hand loop. And there's just a plethora of other cards that have just seen very, very degenerate strategies and one-sided advantage, and overall hurt the quality of the game. And so if you look at the list, though, most of these cards you will recognize as also being banned in the TCG and the OCG, but there are certain differences, such as Mystic Mine being banned, which is not banned in the TCG. Also Dragoon being banned, which is not true in the TCG. So overall, these cards, most people would argue that most of these choices are fair, and there are not too many gripes with the actual limited list. But with the forbidden list, but onto the limited list, Exodia has been on the ban list for an extremely long amount of time, being limited to 1 copy per card. Regeki, another very powerful card. If you watch some of my other videos, I will show you how to get both a Regeki and a Monster Reborn and a Rhoda for free in this game just by playing some of the solo missions. Cyberstein, Morphing Jar, Feather Duster, Card Destruction, a lot of very powerful one-of cards. Terraforming, a consistency boosting card to search field spells. A very controversial card of modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is Imperial Order. A lot of people are calling for this card to be banned, but in general, the card is probably going to stay at 1 alongside a lot of its other one-of staples. The 1-for-1 card, another very powerful searcher. Instant Fusion, Gold Sark. These are a lot of very powerful simple spell cards that just either boost consistency or give you advantage. But now we're getting into some of the more interesting cards. So for example, Vanity's Emptiness is a card that is at 1, and it is actually banned in the TCG. And it's a very powerful trap card that says neither player can special summon monsters, but if a card is sent from the deck or field to the graveyard, it is destroyed. So that is an extremely powerful trap card that a lot of people are opting to use in this strategy, or in this format, I should say. And same with Brilliant Fusion, able to get your Gemnite deck to actually be playable, and use that with cards such as Gemnite Seraphinite. Dragonic Diagram is also at 1, same with Light Stage, but for example, Reincarnation is at 1, where in the TCG it is unlimited. Another controversial pick here is True King of all Calamities. This card is extremely powerful. All it does is take 2 level 9 monsters to XZ summon it, and it says once per turn you can detach a material and declare an attribute, and this turn all face-up monsters on the field become that attribute, and all monsters in your opponent's possession with that attribute cannot activate their effects or attack. So it is almost a more powerful version of Mystic Mine, because it is more of a one-sided Mystic Mine. So it's extremely powerful. The Virtual World deck takes the most advantage of this card and is able to easily cheat it out on almost every given turn. So cards like Multi-Faker are at 1, and same with Kagari, whereas in the TCG they are just unlimited. A card like Electromite is a very powerful card for the Pendulum deck, so this opens up the playability of Pendulum decks in Master Duel, whereas they are almost all but unplayable in the TCG. This card has 2 very powerful effects. The first, if it's link summoned, you can add a Pendulum monster from your deck to extra deck face up, and then once per turn you can target a card, destroy it, and then add a Pendulum monster from your deck to your extra deck, and then that combos with if a card in your Pendulum zone leaves the field, you can draw a card. So it just provides an immense amount of advantage for the player. Same with Halki Fibrax, also commonly referred to as Needle Fiber. This card summons a tuner from your hand or deck, and you're able to also synchro summon or a special summon a tuner synchro from your extra deck by attributing it. So a couple other changes to kind of the limited list here is that cards like Harp Horror and Colossus and Galatea are all shifted in respect to their limited status, where Harp and Thunder Dragon Colossus are banned. Thunder Dragon Colossus is a very powerful floodgate effect, where that cards cannot be added from the main deck to the opponent's hand except by drawing. So this basically prevents all searching, and then Harp Horror is an extremely powerful consistency boosting card for the Orcust engine. And as a trade-off to having Harp at 1 instead of 0 in the TCG, the Galatea, the Link 2, has been placed at 1. Verte has been placed at 1, which in the TCG it is actually unlimited. So people are thinking that there is a chance that this card does get hit, but most people think that it will get banned instead of being placed at 1, because most people only play 1 copy, whereas a card like Zeus, some people do opt to play more than 1 copy just because of how strong it is, especially in the late game when you have a kind of one-sided advantage here with a card such as Zeus that can clear the board multiple times. And finally, a card like Nadir's Servant just kind of hurts the consistency of the Dogmatic engine, and that's kind of going to be going into the upcoming Fallen of Albaz structure deck. So that's probably a card that will stay at 1 for the foreseeable future. Moving on to the semi-limited list, it's a relatively short list in comparison. Cards like Scapegoat and Magical Meltdown are definitely different. Same with Red Eyes, Darkness Metal Dragon, and Gamma. A lot of cards here are either at 1 or at 3, so they're kind of just shifted by 1 copy. Scapegoat is at 1, for example. Super Poly is at 3 in the TCG, and people project E-Telly to come back to 3 in the TCG. And so a lot of these cards, such as Engage, being actually banned for a long time and then coming back to 1 copy. But here in Master Duel, it is at 2 copies with a small trade-off of Kagari being limited and Widow Anchor being at 2. The Dino Engine gets a little consistency hit with Overraptor being at 2. This is your basically Stratos for the deck. It also is able to get you additional advantage by popping dinosaur cards on your field. Magical Meltdown takes a little bit off of the power and consistency of the Invoke deck by allowing you to basically just search out an Alistair and not having your spell cards responded to, your spell fusion monsters responded to. So this is also a very powerful card. A lot of people think that in the TCG this will get hit to 1. So for now, that's basically a card that can be definitely abused. And then also Cursed Eldland. This card is at 2 copies, where the TCG is at 3. It provides a big consistency boost to the Eldritch deck, being able to search any Eldritch monster or golden land card from your deck. And then finally, Call by the Grave is definitely a must-have staple in Master Duel because of its power to stop hand traps, specifically monster hand traps, and the prevalency of cards like specifically Maxi, but also cards like Ash Blossom and Effect Veiler and DD Crow are also very, very prevalent in the game. So that's basically a general overview of the Forbidden, Limited, and Semi-Limited list. For the future of this game, Konami has not announced what they have planned for the actual ban list. A lot of people were very surprised when there was this custom ban list in place instead of just the TCG and the OCG formats being 2 separate options for you to play on. So in the future, it seems like this is going to be the standard for Master Duel, and most people are assuming that this is going to kind of help to bring both of the TCG and OCG formats together and create a single format where people can actually climb the ladder in Master Duel and have it mean something, because instead of it being separated by the 2 territories, you can actually be climbing the world ladder and actually have a world rank. So that, I think, is going to be a lot more interesting and a lot more competitive for a lot of players. And I think the response so far initially was some confusion, but I think everything I've heard so far are people have really kind of accepted this format and really started to enjoy what's available. Currently, the card pool is only limited to cards released towards middle of 2021 for the TCG. There's no Burst of Destiny, but cards like sets from Brothers of Legend are released, and there's also a whole pool of kind of generic older vanilla monsters mostly that were released in the OCG that have not been released in the TCG but are actually playable in this game because it pretty much follows the OCG release dates. And so there's a bunch of cards that still need to come out for sets like Burst of Destiny, like I mentioned, but then also Battles of Chaos, which has been released in the OCG and has a lot of kind of retro support, for things like Dark Magician and Blue Eyes. So a lot of people are looking forward to that, but as of yet, Konami has not announced anything, but hopefully that they will get on that very shortly, because I think a lot of people are having a lot of fun, but we're definitely going to need some new cards to spice up the format in the coming weeks. So yeah, so thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate it if you would like it, if you did enjoy the video, and then subscribe for more Master Duel content. I'm aiming to put out a lot of videos here in the future, a lot of deck profiles, a lot of battling and dueling videos, and also I am hoping to get some tournaments going so we can actually have more of a competitive scene and kind of see what the meta is developing in this new Master Duel format. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.